Good morning, traders, and welcome to Trade the Structure, another morning market review. Just coming to the Asian market session, and we're going to go through all the action from the US session and European session yesterday just to see how that played out. All right, before we get started, it'd be fantastic if you can take a look around our profile and also just visit the website, it'll be www.tradethestructure.com, and take a look around our YouTube channel as well, just to see what we've got on there. A lot of free material. Yeah, and just leave us a like if you enjoy any of the stuff there. So let's get started then. We'll look at the S&P to start off with, the S&P 500. Now the US is pretty much range bound. You can see this is the action from the open. It pretty much opened low and then sort of worked its way up slightly, and not really with any bulls or bears in control completely. It looks like it was just grinding its way, pretty much range bound for the session, and you see that on the Dow and the Nasdaq as well. So what do we expect from here? I mean, look, that could be a lower high. I mean, momentum's still down. You've got the EMAs down. Momo's getting a little bit extended there. So it could be that it's going to flush into the new lows. It could flush these lows here tonight and bounce straight back again. We don't know, but either way, it looks like the the algos were out there supporting the lows, supporting any sort of flush into a low. They were soaking up below support. It's actually more clear when we look at the Dow here. You can see it got through the support there and just got soaked up, okay, all the way back up again. And it looks like maybe, we're getting a bit extended on the momentum. Had that big push down. We haven't retraced any really of that. Had a bit of a grind higher, but it's still, it was down for the session, okay? So the thing is, coming into Friday, we could be the fact that they were just holding up below that level. We could have a bit of a pop up tonight, a bit of bargain hunting just to reverse some of that trend down. But we'll see how that plays out. Now the Nasdaq, same sort of action. It was more, it was probably a lot clearer that it was range bound. Okay, you saw that obviously got that open lower. These lows held at around that 11,858, and the highs held at around 12,068, 063. So looking at it, I mean, it doesn't mean just because they were holding it, especially on the Dow, that they were looking to provide some sort of support. The momentum is still down. Okay, this could clearly be a lower high, and we could press straight down through these lows tonight and into new lows. Okay, that's probably the fear. There's still markets getting weighed down by concerns over inflation, rate rise, and things like that, and they're not going anywhere. Okay, inflation is still quite high. I think concern now is that consumers starting to slow down, not going to provide any support. We were describing that yesterday with some figures out yesterday showing the consumers a little bit weaker than expected. And that's why the market got hammered with Target earnings, and I can't remember the other company, but they come out and showed that obviously consumers a little bit weaker, well, a lot weaker than what they expected with those earnings that come through in those earnings. So if that's the case, there could still be a lot of pressure. If they're not going to get supported by the consumer, meaning the economy is going to sort of slow down, or the growth is going to slow down, and we've still got well and truly high inflation, there's kind of not much left to be happy about, I would expect, and that's why the market's been pressuring down. Okay, the good thing is we had a bit of a bounce, a sell-off in the US dollar, which provides support to some commodities across the board, and took some safe havens out of the action, which would lead me to believe that we could get a bit of a bounce tonight. I mean, we could get this sort of gap up and tonight, a bit of a gap up and consolidate, maybe just grind up into the close into the weekend, finish on a positive note. Over to European markets, you can see the way they played out, flush down in the open. This was a DAX, big flush down in the open. It got down to lows and it rallied quite hard off those lows. Now the actual futures market continued to rally. I think they got all the way back up to close that gap from the opening lows and actually finished in the green. But the actual underlying index, which closes at 1 a.m., so there's still quite a bit of the US session to go, that lagged a bit. So you might find that the market opens up tonight. We may close this gap tonight on the actual underlying index on this pricing, and then we may start to roll over. Longer term, it's still in that downtrend. We come off this level here at around 14,150 or 14,200, whatever you want to call it. We've come off that level, and we've taken out some key higher lows from this run up here, and we could just be retracing and then getting another lower high, which could easily play out tonight. So just looking at what we saw in the US and tonight on the DAX, it could be that it's an each way bet. The market is down. The DAX, all the Euro indexes are down in the US. Longer term, we're just getting bounces. We're getting flushing into lows, bouncing straight back again, flushing into lows, bouncing straight back. So it's kind of choppy action. And I'm betting that if the US looks like it's going to be positive, they'll probably drag the DAX up and the UK up into that 1 o'clock mark. And if they're going to sell off, it'll probably be more than likely after that 1 o'clock mark when the European markets close. So yeah, we'll see how this opens up. Like I said, I expect it to be open a bit stronger. UK. Now we've got this it got smashed. Obviously, it finished sort of down on its lows on the index. It was down 135 points, you can see here. But the actual CFDs and the futures pricing, they rallied, okay, along with that bounce, sort of not really a bounce, but the strength that was coming into the close, or the fact that a lot of people expected another sell-off. Okay, the fear was that we're going to get smashed and we're going to sell off even lower tonight, whereas the US was soaked up. Any sort of pushing lower from the open was getting soaked up the whole session. Okay, which gave confidence, I think, to the European markets into the close, and they sort of bounced straight back again. I'm not sure. I'm expecting this to maybe potentially open somewhere about that zone above that 73.40 area, which it broke straight through. So it may come through here, and then we'll see if it can hold a lower high from there. That movement down is getting a bit extended, and I think there'll be some bargain hunters providing some support tonight, at least up until the US opens. We get more of a directional bias once the US is open and kicked off. The Asian markets. So the the XJO, which is the ASX 200, so it got smashed obviously yesterday and pretty much held around those lows. Now, the SPY didn't do too much last night. It did push lower from the European Open and then bounced back. So it bounced back about 60 points from the session lows. And it's looking to open, which means that the ASX is going to open about 10 points down or slightly, even if it's going to open at break even from where it closed yesterday, around 70, 74. So that means we could get some bargain hunting into weekend. I mean, it's a tough one for the ASX. We could easily get some bargain hunting, but there's going to be some tentative buying. I wouldn't expect it to get out of hand. Okay, so this could still be, you've got the big move down. We could still be correcting some of this move down, which means we're going to get back up to these highs and potentially higher. But it all depends on what the US does. I mean, we're just going to follow them, essentially. So don't be surprised if we do start to have a bit of a strong rally today. That to me suggests that the US is going to be up. We seem to be leading the US markets a lot, and the same with Asian markets. If they bounce back strong today, along with the XJO, ASX, we're probably going to have more than likely have a really good session to finish off the week in the US. Okay, but we'll see how that plays out. The fact that it was holding those lows on the SPY, it was kind of hovering around the previous lows, or the day's close, then leads me to believe that it's going to get soaked up and we're going to sort of have a bit of a bounce back and get some bargain hunting from that yesterday's sell-off and the fact that we've been down for quite a while now. Bargain hunters just come out and provide some support. I'll spit that out. There you go. All right, over to Hang Seng. Now, the Hang Seng, that it doesn't look too crash hot, but the futures market rallied quite hard. Okay, once this closes around 6 p.m. Sydney time, 6 p.m. So it closed down here. Now the futures from that time rallied another 350 points. So that would mean that if you get that, the index is going to be around 350 points. It's going to open up somewhere back into those highs, the previous highs. Okay, which means they're going to more than likely, they're going to rally into this support, into this resistance zone here. Now, the thing is they could gap up, have a bit of a flush higher, and then drop into the weekend. It's going to be a strong gap up. That's the problem you're going to have to be dealing with if you're trading intraday, which I do quite a bit on the Hang Seng. You're going to have to be dealing with another gap. It's really, really gappy lately. And, to think it's going to gap up and keep going because the US is going to be strong, you don't know. I mean, there's been every sort of scenario where it's gapped up and gap and go, or it's gap and drop. It's gapped down yesterday, sort of dropped and rallied straight back quite hard. So you really just got to take the price action as it plays out. But either way, there's probably going to be some resistance up here for the day. I wouldn't expect it to get through these highs. Yeah, but funny things that happen. It could gap up 350 and you think, good move, good strong move, and it goes another 200, 300 points, back through these highs. Okay, so we just have to be wary each way what's going to happen. It could be factored in the US is going to bounce back quite strong tonight. Either that or they're going to drag the index up and dump on it. Okay, so not really clear on which way it's going to go. We'll have to see what that opening drive is going to do. Now, the Nikkei is going to open up a bit stronger too. The CFD and futures prices rallied overnight, kicked up. Now, you can see from this price action on the actual underlying index, very, very gappy. So very, very tough to trade and get a bit of a read. But the fact is that we gapped down quite hard in this session, held onto those lows, gapped up the next session and sort of held onto those gains. Don't be surprised if we gap and sort of, have a bit of a grind higher into the weekend because it's got a long way up until we hit any sort of resistance zones. All right, so we could get to this. I'm not sure where we're going to be open on the Nikkei. Well, we haven't really got too much of a read where we're going to open here. But yeah, don't be surprised if we sort of gap up a bit on the open and just sort of grind our way up. All right, we'll have to wait and see. Over to the currencies, dollar rolled over from the start of the European session. You can see, I think it was somewhere around here. It's about the 6 o'clock mark. It was already the European session opens at 5 p.m. Sydney time, and then the indexes, the main indexes, kick off at they kick off at 5, and the futures open at 4. So from there, the start of the European market, the US dollar came under pressure, and you can see it was just a clear sell-off. Okay, so we sort of had this bit of a bounce off that 103.232 area, and then we got up to the highs yesterday, sort of gapped down on the open slightly, retested into that gap, tried to close the gap, or probably did close the gap, and that was coming into around that 5 o'clock mark before the indexes opened in the European session, and then pretty much clear selling all the way down. Okay, took out this low at 103.232 and kept heading lower. So that's kind of the theme overnight. That's what supported gold. Gold's got nothing to do with the safe haven buy, nothing to do with the inflation hedge. It was just purely a currency play with weakness into the US dollar. And the same with, you've got oil bounce because of the weakness in the US dollar. Copper, I think, actually bounced because of the weakness into the US dollar. And you've probably got to find support into your cryptos as well because of that US dollar weakness. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what we do. I wouldn't be surprised if we continue to press down into that 102.400 level, just to flush out a few more of these longs. That pretty much reverses all these longs. But the interesting thing will be is that if we go to a daily, it might be a bit clearer. This is a daily resistance zone. Okay, it's probably hard to see. I've got all my junk in there, but it's what's it done at the moment. We've had this big press up, and we're sort of somewhere around here. So are we going to reject that daily resistance zone? Meaning that we're going to head south, and we're probably going to get some sort of pop and then a bigger drop. Are we going to do that off that daily resistance because we flushed the level, dragged in some buyers, trapped them, and then squeezed them straight back out with a move down? Or are we going to start to hold at this area like we've just come off there and start to hold and go back up again? Okay, it's got to do with inflation, interest rates, what's been factored in and what hasn't. Okay, now if the Feds start getting a bit more aggressive, expect this kind of a scenario to play out. If they start taking their foot off the pedal a bit, then you might find that there's US dollar that's been any bulls that have been dragged in because of that higher interest rates. We're talking up there, probably get squeezed out first, and we might get a decent correction lower, which would be good for your currencies, gold, oil, things like that. Okay, so back to that 30-minute chart. You can see that's why I'm sort of, I expect it to sort of flush down. Now, if it holds here and starts to ramp back up, we'll have to just wait and see what plays out. Okay, but it's mainly that daily, this kind of big move up, straight back down again, is a big flush of that daily level. And it's going to take some while for that to play out, but we'll see how that goes into the euro. That drop in the US dollar has led to a big rally into the euro. Just take out the previous highs at 105.55, thereabouts, these previous highs, and continue on its way up. Now, if we do get obviously further downside in the US, expect we get further upside in the euro. All right, but I'll just be keeping an eye on two of them. If we start a bit of a pullback here and we start bouncing off these MAs, maybe look for your lower time frame charts for a bit of a buy and see if we can press higher. Pound, much the same. Not as strong a move as you can see that euro is pretty much going lockstep with the US dollar, whereas the pound is a bit more conservative. Okay, they got their own pound has been traded as opposed to the euro. Now everyone's sort of buying and selling the euro because of what's happening with the US dollar, right? Whereas the pound is getting its own sort of reaction. So with the pound, you've got back up into this level at 125.10, this zone through here, reacted down off that level before, held a higher low, back into the level. So we're going to be watching this to see whether it's going to be a lower high, a retest fail here, a double top, and we're going to start to work into a lower high, meaning something like this, this lower high comes into play, or whether we're just going to keep pushing up and we can work off this higher low as this leg continues up, because there could be room for a move. That's your move up, previous leg up off that higher low, and we're moving back up into this zone here, back through these highs somewhere around 129, 126.90 or thereabouts. Okay, over the Aussie dollar. It's similar to what we just looked at the pound. It's just got through a high. It's a bit clearer on the Aussie, which means that we could get, this is the initial leg up, this could be the secondary leg up, which could be taking us up to these highs around 71.26, which is, comes into a lower high previously back from the 6th of May. Okay, so that was your leg down. We've reversed the way we've come back up to this high, had a bit of a pullback, consolidated a higher low, and then we're going again. So that could be, just sort of the move here. So really it's about looking into those higher lows and see if we can get some sort of higher low that press higher back up to this area. Okay, US yen, we were talking this up as a short, and it did play out. I was thinking it was going to roll over. We got this move down here, and I thought if we get another lower high, we could press down into this 128.05, but it doesn't do a lot during the Asian market session. You sort of got the start of the European markets, the start of the US, with the bulk of the action is on your currencies, which means we sort of flush this level, bounce back, and then it was, you see here about 2 p.m. Sydney time, just coming to the start of the European session. it started to pause below 129, below this resistance zone, and we've got another sell-off. So it's just holding that trend down. We've come into that 128.05 area. We've got a major lower high around 129.55, which is through here, major lower high. And momentum at the moment is still down. Okay, we'll just wait and see where that goes to. So you've just reacted up off this this level here, which is around 126, 127, say. And I would expect we could keep grinding lower. Okay, but again, I think the move down was more US dollar dependent. US dollar sold off. There's no really buying into the yen to support that move down. It was more, no safe haven buying into the yen. It was just pure. I would expect pure US dollar selling that drove this market down. So if that US dollar continues to go down, then expect the US yen to continue to go down in the short term anyway. But we'll be looking to start the European session to see some more action. Over to gold. Like I said, gold had a good little rally because of that US dollar move. We're talking about this little double bottom in here where the market moved up, and it was about here. I think it was somewhere here when we were talking yesterday. Yeah, about here. When we were talking yesterday, I would expect that little move down there to hold as a higher low. We had a bit of a grind down. You can see it turned on a dime and ramped straight back up again. Okay, so that's about the time that US dollar started selling off 5, 6 o'clock. Okay. So that was US dollar based. It's moving as a currency. I would expect it could extend. That's your initial leg up. We could extend that leg up into 1857. It is getting a bit extended though. That move up is a bit extended. So if it starts to fail around these zones, expect probably a move back down to 1830. Okay, so it's all about whether that momentum up can continue and that US dollar move down can continue. Okay, this matches off to if that US dollar goes into that 102 support zone, that 102 something support. We'll show you here. Goes down to this 102.40 area, then look at gold to pump up to 1853. Okay, up to this area here, or 1855. Okay, this resistance zone, this previous lower high. Over to crude. Crude had a bit of a bounce. Again, US dollar base. You can see that move there. It was about just coming to the start of the US session actually. So the US dollar had been selling off. Crude was heading down. Found some support at 103. Had a good little bounce. Okay, bounced straight back up as the US dollar held onto those lows. So crude. More that was US dollar was supporting that, but US dollar was already moving down from around, let's just see, from around about this time here. So we can see oil actually moved down, flushed into support once the US opened and didn't take a hit. It looked a bit more buoyant than what they previously expected. You've got a big bounce back into crude, so it was just really those shorts getting squeezed out of the action. So where to from here? We've got to get through this sort of 111 area first. It could just continue on its way up. I want to see if it pulls back into these MAs, potentially somewhere around 108, 30 or 40, then we could bounce off those EMAs and start to head higher. Okay, but if not, if we start to head too much lower, then you're going to get a lower high come into play and move back down to potentially 103, 104 area. Okay, copper, yeah, good move up. And that I suspect was just continuation as that US dollar continued to go down. That's continued to go up and pressed up through highs. Okay, recent highs. So we're back into a key level at 429.45. We may get some selling. Just again, keep an eye if you want to know what copper's doing or what it could do. Keep an eye on that US dollar. All right, over to Bitcoin. We'll just finish off on some cryptos. They were pretty much well contained. You can see Bitcoin found some support around that 28,500 level. It's going to be still concerning for bulls. I think it's lacking a big bullish sentiment to drive the market higher, but it's also lacking any sort of more bearish flush that could drive the market, significantly below 30,000. It's sort of hovering around that 30,000 mark. To me, this kind of ramp up, holding off the MAs, breaking this sort of minor downtrend could mean that we get a bit of a lift. I wouldn't expect it to get out of hand through 3,700 through these highs, potentially into these highs at 31,400. But we'll wait and see. And Ethereum is much the same. Okay, it's just hovering. It looks like it's hovering a high low, but that hasn't really broken out of that downtrend. So we could get a bit of a spike in the 2050. We'll have to wait and see how it goes. All right, guys, that's pretty much it for me. We'll call it quits there. Like I said, it's a bit. It'd be a bit interesting to see how the US goes, how they finish off the week. Okay, it looks like they might have a bit of a bounce, and your cryptos are sort of suggesting that there could be a bit of support into indices again as we get some bargain hunting tonight. But just wait and see how that plays out. All right, guys, thanks for joining me. Remember, if you do like what you hear, it'd be great if you can jump on the YouTube channel, subscribe, and leave us a like, and help support our community. Go to the website. There's a lot of information on there, a lot of free stuff, and just subscribe to the website www.tradethestructure.com. and then you'll get all access to free material and alerts and all things like that, and some education. All right, guys, thanks for joining me. Have a great weekend, and we'll speak to you soon.